My name is Stella, and today is my 30th birthday. I should be celebrating, but instead, I'm staring at my phone in disbelief. My family, who promised to celebrate with me, are posting beach photos from Tahiti. My father's comment calling me a clown they didn't want to waste time on keeps replaying in my mind. The pain is unbearable, but something inside me has finally snapped. I smile as I type, "Surprise, waiting for you." Let me know where you're watching from, hit that like and subscribe button, and get ready for what happened when my family realized they'd pushed me too far. I always knew I was different from my family, but I never thought they would exclude me so completely. As the middle child between my older sister Amanda and younger brother James, I grew accustomed to being overlooked. Amanda was the golden child, ambitious and outspoken, while James was the baby of the family who could do no wrong. I was just there. My parents, David and Catherine Wellington, never hid their favoritism. Amanda's straight A's were celebrated with fancy dinners, while my honor roll certificates were met with distracted nods. When James struggled to pass classes, my parents hired the best tutors and praised his perseverance. My achievements always seemed to disappear in the shadow of my siblings. The pattern started early. When I was 12, I won a state writing competition. My parents promised to take me out for ice cream to celebrate, but they canceled when James had a last-minute play date. "He's been looking forward to seeing his friend," Mom explained, as if my accomplishment meant nothing. I sat alone in my room that night reading my winning story to my stuffed animals instead. My high school graduation was another painful memory. While my friends' families took elaborate photos and went to celebration dinners, my ceremony was cut short because James had a baseball game across town. "We'll celebrate later," Dad promised, but later never came. Instead, I got a hastily purchased card with no personal message, just my parents' signatures. College brought no improvement. When my acceptance letter to Northwestern arrived the same day Amanda announced her promotion at work, my news barely registered. "That's nice, honey," Mom said distractedly before turning back to Amanda for all the details about her new office. I spent that evening alone at a coffee shop, calling my one close friend to share my excitement because no one at home seemed interested. When I graduated with honors in finance, my parents attended the ceremony but left immediately afterward for a dinner reservation they'd made. "We thought you'd want to celebrate with your friends anyway," Mom said. I didn't tell them I had hoped we would celebrate as a family, that I had no special plans because I assumed we would be together. After college, I secured a position as a financial analyst at a respected firm in Chicago. I worked long hours, earned promotions, and built a reputation for attention to detail and innovative thinking. My boss valued my contributions more than my family ever had, and for the first time, I felt genuinely appreciated for my work. When I bought my first apartment, I was so proud. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine, purchased with money I had saved while living with 3 roommates in a cramped space for 3 years. I planned a small housewarming and invited my family, spending days cleaning and decorating. 2 hours before they were supposed to arrive, my mother called to cancel. James had broken up with his girlfriend and needed family support. I sat alone in my decorated apartment, with enough food for 6 people, fighting back tears. Despite these disappointments, I kept trying. Each year, I bought thoughtful Christmas and birthday gifts for everyone, remembering their preferences and wishes mentioned months earlier. In return, I received gift cards or generic presents that showed little thought. Last Christmas, Amanda received a designer handbag she'd been wanting. James got expensive concert tickets, and I unwrapped a scented candle set that still had the clearance sticker on the bottom. Family vacations were another source of pain. Several times, plans were made without consulting my schedule, and when I couldn't get last-minute time off work, they went without me. "We'll plan better next time," Dad would say, but next time was always the same. I have photos on my phone of family trips to the Grand Canyon, Florida, and California that I wasn't part of. Through it all, I tried to stay positive. I told myself that families are complicated, that my parents and siblings loved me in their own way. I focused on building my career and creating a life that made me happy, independent of their approval. But a small part of me still yearned for their recognition and inclusion. As my 30th birthday approached, I felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. 30 felt significant, a milestone worth celebrating. For once, I wanted my family to acknowledge an important day in my life. 3 months before my birthday, I mentioned to my mother that I'd love to have a family dinner to celebrate. Of course, sweetie, she said, sounding genuinely enthusiastic. Turning 30 is a big deal. We'll make it special. Her response gave me hope, and I started planning. I reserved a private room at my favorite restaurant, choosing a menu I thought everyone would enjoy. I bought a new dress, scheduled a hair appointment, and even considered hiring a photographer to capture what I hoped would be a rare occasion of family harmony. 2 weeks before my birthday, I called my mother to confirm details. "We're looking forward to it," she assured me. "Your father has been so busy with work, but he's keeping that evening clear. Amanda and James will be there too." I spent the next week preparing my apartment for a small gathering after dinner, buying champagne and party favors, hanging streamers, and a "Happy 30th Birthday" banner in my living room. I wanted everything to be perfect, hoping that maybe this time my family would see me, really see me, and celebrate not just my birthday, but the person I had become despite their neglect. The night before my birthday, I went to bed feeling nervous, but hopeful. Maybe turning 30 would mark the beginning of a new relationship with my family, one based on mutual respect and genuine affection. Little did I know that the next day would indeed change my family dynamic forever, but not in the way I had imagined. I woke up on my birthday morning with that special feeling you get when you know the day is all about you. The sunlight streamed through my blinds, and for a moment everything felt perfect. I reached for my phone expecting a flood of birthday messages, particularly from my family. The screen showed several notifications from friends and colleagues, but nothing from my parents or siblings. Strange, I thought, but maybe they were planning to call later or wanted to surprise me. By noon, after receiving congratulatory texts from distant acquaintances, but still nothing from my immediate family, I began to worry. I called my mother's phone, but it went straight to voicemail. My father's rang several times before disconnecting. My texts to Amanda and James showed as delivered but remained unread. An uneasy feeling settled in my stomach as I sat in my decorated apartment, the happy birthday banner suddenly seeming like a mockery. Maybe they're planning a surprise, I told myself, though the history of our relationship suggested otherwise. Still, I got dressed in my new outfit and applied makeup, determined to remain positive until I knew for certain what was happening. Around 2 in the afternoon, with still no word from my family and our dinner reservation approaching in a few hours, I decided to check social media for clues. Perhaps someone had posted about traffic or flight delays if they were traveling from out of town. What I found instead shattered my heart into 1,000 pieces. There, on my Facebook feed, was a photo posted by Amanda just 20 minutes earlier. My family, all 4 of them, stood smiling on a pristine white beach, azure waters stretching behind them. The location tag read, "Bora Bora, Tahiti," and the caption, "A wonderful day for a wonderful family. So glad we could all be here together for this special trip." My hands began to shake so badly I nearly dropped my phone. They hadn't forgotten my birthday. They had deliberately chosen to celebrate it without me, thousands of miles away in paradise. The comments section was filled with friends remarking on how beautiful Tahiti was and asking what the special occasion was. Amanda had replied, "Just a family bonding trip we've been planning for months. Months." They had been planning this for months, all while I was arranging a birthday dinner they never intended to attend. I felt physically ill, my stomach churning with a nauseating mixture of hurt and rage. The room seemed to spin around me as I scrolled through more photos. My father raising a tropical drink in a toast. My mother lounging on a beach chair. James paddleboarding in crystal clear water. All of them looking happy, complete, a perfect family with no missing members. No empty space where I should have been. With trembling fingers, I typed a simple comment under the family photo. "Why?" I didn't expect an immediate response, but to my surprise, my father replied within minutes, "We didn't want to waste our time on a clown. Some people just don't fit in with the family vibe." The casual cruelty of his words struck me like a physical blow. A clown. That's how he saw me, how they all saw me. Someone who didn't belong, who wasn't worth including in their wonderful family. As tears streamed down my face, my phone began to buzz with notifications. Extended family members who had seen the exchange were messaging me privately, expressing shock and sympathy. My cousin Taylor wrote, "I can't believe Uncle David said that. Are you okay?" My Aunt Lisa called, her voice filled with concern. Stella, I just saw what's happening online. I had no idea they were excluding you from this trip, she said. Your mother told everyone you couldn't come because of work commitments. They never invited me, I whispered, my voice breaking. Today is my 30th birthday, and they knew it. They've been planning this trip for months while I've been planning a family dinner for tonight. The silence on the other end of the line told me everything. Even Aunt Lisa, who had always been kind to me, hadn't questioned why a family would schedule a vacation on their daughter's 30th birthday. After hanging up, I sat in my silent apartment surrounded by cheerful decorations that now seemed to mock my pain. The champagne I'd bought to toast with my family sat unopened on the counter. The restaurant would be calling soon to confirm our reservation, a dinner that would never happen. Something inside me hardened in that moment. Years of subtle exclusion had culminated in this blatant rejection publicly displayed for everyone to see. My father's words calling me a clown echoed in my mind. The accumulated pain of a lifetime of being the outsider crystallized into a cold, clear resolve. I picked up my phone again and replied to my father's comment, "Surprise waiting for you." Then I silenced. My phone changed out of my party outfit and began to formulate a plan. The tears had stopped flowing, replaced by a calm determination. For 30 years, I had sought their approval and inclusion, adjusting my expectations lower and lower each time they disappointed me. No more. Today was indeed going to mark a new chapter in my life, but not the one any of us had anticipated. As the reality of their betrayal sank in, I realized this wasn't a single thoughtless action, but the culmination of a lifetime pattern. My family had shown me who they were and how they valued me, or rather, how little they valued me. Now it was time to show them who I had become and what that would mean for all of us. The next few days passed in a blur of emotion. I cycled through disbelief, rage, profound sadness, and finally a strange sense of clarity. It was as if seeing my family's true feelings displayed so publicly had finally cut through the web of excuses and rationalizations I'd been making for them all my life. My best friend Jordan came over the day after my birthday, bringing takeout and a sympathetic ear. We sat on my couch, the birthday decorations now taken down and stuffed in a trash bag by the door. "I can't believe they would do this to you," Jordan said, shaking her head. "And your dad's comment? That was just cruel." "The worst part is that I'm not even surprised," I admitted. "This is just a more extreme version of what they've always done. Remember my college graduation when they left immediately after the ceremony?" Jordan nodded. "And your promotion celebration last year that they all canceled on at the last minute." As we talked, I began to see the pattern more clearly than ever before. My family hadn't just failed to celebrate my achievements, they had actively minimized them, creating a narrative where my accomplishments were less significant, my presence less necessary, my feelings less important than everyone else's. It's textbook emotional abuse. My therapist, Dr. Winters, confirmed when I recounted the events during an emergency session. What you're describing is a family dynamic where you've been cast in the role of the outsider, the scapegoat. But why? I asked the question that had haunted me all my life. What did I do to deserve being treated this way? Nothing, Dr. Winters said firmly. Family dynamics like this aren't rational. Sometimes parents create these roles for their children based on their own unresolved issues. The important thing now is recognizing that you can't change them, but you can change how you respond to them. That conversation was pivotal. For years, I had been trying to earn my family's love and approval, believing that if I just achieved enough, gave enough, forgave enough, they would finally welcome me as a full member of the family. Now I saw the futility of that approach. No achievement would ever be enough because the problem wasn't me, it was them. I decided not to contact my family directly while they were still in Tahiti. What would be the point? Any confrontation would just lead to denials, minimizing, and probably turning the blame back on me. Instead, I would use this time to prepare for their return and figure out my next steps. As I began to research options for establishing stronger boundaries with toxic family members, I remembered something significant. 5 years ago, when my grandmother passed away, she had left me a small but meaningful stake in the family business, a successful chain of specialty grocery stores my grandfather had founded and my father now ran. At the time, I had signed some paperwork but hadn't paid much attention to the details, more focused on grieving my grandmother, who had been one of the few family members who seemed to truly see and value me. I dug through my files until I found the documents related to my inheritance. Reading them carefully now, I discovered something my father had never emphasized as a silent partner. My signature would be required for any major business decisions, including the expansion into new markets that my father had been talking about for the past year. This realization gave me pause. For the first time, I had actual leverage in my family dynamic. I wasn't just the forgotten middle child they could exclude from vacations. I was a necessary signatory for the business expansion that my father had staked his reputation on. I called my friend Marissa, a corporate attorney, and asked her to review the documents. "These are legitimate," she confirmed after examining them. "Your grandmother made you a full partner with veto rights on major business decisions. That's unusual but completely enforceable." "My father never treated me like a real partner," I said. "He just sends me quarterly dividend checks and year-end tax documents." "Well, according to this, you're entitled to much more," Marissa explained. "Full access to business records, vote on board decisions, and as it states here, unanimous partner approval for any capital expenditure exceeding $1 million. I knew the planned expansion would cost many times that amount. For the first time, I felt a sense of power in relation to my family. Not that I wanted to harm the business my grandfather had built, but I realized I could demand the respect and consideration I deserved. Over the next week, I developed a multi-step plan. First, I would secure my financial independence by moving my savings to a new bank unconnected to the family business. Then I would meet with the company's CFO, whom I knew slightly from holiday parties, to get a complete picture of the business finances without my father's filtering. Finally, I would consult with a business attorney about my rights and responsibilities as a partner. My cousin Ryan, who worked in accounting at the family business but had always been kind to me, agreed to meet for coffee. What he revealed shocked me. "Stella, I probably shouldn't be telling you this," he said nervously. "But Uncle David has been using company funds for personal expenses for years. That Tahiti trip, it's being written off as a business retreat, even though no business is being conducted." "Is that legal?" I asked. Ryan shrugged. "It's in a gray area, but it's definitely shady. And there's more. The profit distributions you've been receiving, they're about half what you should be getting based on your ownership percentage." This information transformed my hurt into righteous anger. Not only had my family excluded and insulted me, but my father had also been financially taking advantage of me for years, counting on my ignorance and desire for approval to prevent me from questioning his management of my inheritance. With Ryan's help, I began gathering documentation of these financial discrepancies. My friend Teresa, an accountant, helped me understand the complex financial statements and identified several clear instances where my father had misappropriated funds that should have gone to all partners, including me. As I prepared for the inevitable confrontation, I focused on building my emotional strength as well. Dr. Winters and I worked on setting boundaries, managing anxiety, and developing responses to the manipulation tactics my family would likely employ. "Remember, they will try to make you feel guilty for standing up for yourself," Dr. Winters warned. "They'll call you selfish or accuse you of overreacting. Be prepared for that and know that protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary." 2 weeks after my birthday, I received a text from my mother. "We're back home. Family dinner at our house on Sunday 6 p.m. No mention of my birthday, no explanation for their absence, not even an acknowledgement of the hurtful Facebook exchange. Just an expectation that I would show up as always, accepting whatever scraps of attention they deigned to offer. It was exactly the opportunity I needed to implement my plan. My family returned from Tahiti, tanned, relaxed, and apparently oblivious to the pain they had caused. Amanda posted more vacation photos with captions about making memories with the people who matter most, as if deliberately twisting the knife. James sent me a text that read, "Happy belated B-Day, sis. Hope 29 was good to you." Getting even my age wrong. My parents made no contact at all until the dinner invitation from my mother. While they were enjoying paradise, I had been busy. I met with a personal financial advisor and transferred all my savings to a new bank. I opened a separate account for the dividend checks from the family business and consulted with an attorney about my rights as a partner. The most enlightening meeting was with Harold Foster, the CFO of Wellington Foods. He was initially reluctant to meet with me without my father present, but when I presented the partnership documents my grandmother had left me, he had no choice. "Ms. Wellington, I had no idea you were interested in the operational side of the business," he said as we sat in his office. "My interest is recent," I replied, "but as a partner I have a right to understand how the company is being managed." The financial records revealed disturbing patterns. Beyond what Ryan had told me, I discovered that my father had been using the business as his personal piggy bank, categorizing family vacations, his luxury car, and even Amanda's condo down payment as business expenses. Meanwhile, loyal employees had been denied raises due to claimed budget constraints. Most concerning was the pending expansion plan. My father had presented it to investors as a done deal, even though my signature would be required for it to proceed. The construction contracts were scheduled to be signed just 3 days after the family dinner my mother had invited me to. Armed with this knowledge and the documentation to back it up, I prepared for the confrontation. I selected my outfit carefully, a tailored black pantsuit that projected confidence and authority so different from the casual, overlooked Stella they were used to dismissing. I arranged for Jordan to call me an hour into the dinner with an emergency if I needed an escape. I prepared and rehearsed what I would say, focusing on facts rather than emotions, and I reminded myself repeatedly that I deserved better treatment than what my family had offered me. Before leaving for dinner, I changed the locks on my apartment. A symbolic gesture, perhaps, but one that reinforced my commitment to establishing boundaries. My family had keys to my place, but rarely visited yet. The knowledge that they could no longer enter without my permission gave me a sense of security. As I drove to my parents' suburban home, I felt strangely calm. For 30 years, I had dreaded family gatherings, always tensing for the next slight or dismissal. Now, for the first time, I was arriving with no expectations of their approval or inclusion. I was there for myself to stand up for the respect I deserved. I arrived exactly on time, not early, as had always been my habit. My father answered the door, his greeting perfunctory. "You're here. Everyone's in the dining room." No birthday wishes, no acknowledgement of their absence on my special day. Just the expectation that I would follow along as always, accepting whatever crumbs of attention they offered. The dining room looked the same as it always had, elegant, impersonal, a showcase, rather than a home. Amanda and James were already seated, my mother bringing in a platter of roast chicken. It could have been any Sunday dinner from the past decade, with no indication that they had just returned from a family vacation I hadn't been invited to, or that they had missed my 30th birthday entirely. "Stella, you look nice," my mother said, her tone suggesting surprise, as if my making an effort with my appearance was unusual. "Sit down, dinner's ready." I took my seat, the same one I'd occupied at countless family meals. For the first 20 minutes, conversation flowed around me as it always had. Amanda dominated, talking about her upcoming promotion. James mentioned a girl he'd met in Tahiti. My father discussed business acquaintances he'd networked with at their resort. No one asked me a single question about my life work or how I'd spent my birthday. Finally, my father made a casual reference to the family vacation, as if it had been a normal occurrence that I naturally wouldn't have been part of. "The snorkeling was incredible," he said. "You should have seen the fish, every color you can imagine." It was the opening I had been waiting for. I set down my fork, took a sip of water, and looked directly at him. "I would have loved to see them," I said calmly. "Interesting choice, planning a family vacation on my 30th birthday." The table fell silent. My mother looked down at her plate. Amanda rolled her eyes. James suddenly became very interested in his mashed potatoes. "You know how scheduling is," my father said dismissively. "We got a deal on the resort for those dates. Anyway, you're always so busy with work." "I wasn't too busy to plan a birthday dinner that none of you showed up for," I replied, my voice steady. I wasn't too busy to read Dad's comment calling me a clown you didn't want to waste time on. Oh, that. My father waved his hand. You're too sensitive. It was just a joke. A joke, I repeated. Like the joke of mismanaging company funds for personal expenses. Like the joke of shorting my profit distributions for the past 5 years. That got his attention. His head snapped up, eyes narrowing. What are you talking about? Calmly, I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder of documents I had prepared. I placed it on the table between us. I'm talking about the Tahiti trip being categorized as a business retreat when no business was conducted. I'm talking about Amanda's condo down payment coming from company accounts. I'm talking about the expansion contracts you're planning to sign this week, which require my signature as a partner, something you conveniently never mentioned to me. Amanda's face flushed red. You went snooping through business records. Who do you think you are? I'm a partner in Wellington Foods, I said simply. Grandmother made sure of that. And as a partner, I have every right to know how the business is being managed. My father's expression shifted from anger to something I'd never seen directed at me before: concern. He could bluster and dismiss my feelings all day long, but the business was different. The business was his identity, his legacy, his power. Let's not discuss business at the dinner table, my mother interjected nervously. This is family time. Is it? I asked. Because on Facebook you are a wonderful family, complete without me. Dad made it very clear I don't fit the family vibe. So, which is it? Am I family when you need my signature, but a clown when you're planning vacations? My father's face hardened, then shifted to a placating smile I recognized from his negotiations with business associates. Stella, honey, you're overreacting. Of course you're family. That comment was just a momentary frustration. Let's put this behind us. I'm not signing the expansion contracts, I said flatly. The words hung in the air. Amanda's fork clattered against her plate. What do you mean you're not signing? She demanded, her voice rising to a scream. Do you know what this means? My new house contract is contingent on that bonus Dad promised from the expansion. Stella, be reasonable. My mother pleaded, tears forming in her eyes. This expansion has been planned for months. Your father has investors counting on him. Yes, it has been planned for months, I agreed. The same months you were planning a family vacation on my birthday. The same months you've been systematically excluding me from family events while using my share of the business profits for your personal expenses. My father's face had lost its color. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in his eyes. What do you want? He asked, his voice low. It was the question I had been waiting for, the acknowledgement that for once I had power in this relationship. I want a full accounting of the business finances for the past 5 years. I want restitution of the profit distributions that were rightfully mine. I want my name removed from any business assets that could make me liable for your financial mismanagement. And I want a public apology for the way you've treated me, starting with that Facebook comment. This is ridiculous, Amanda spat. You're going to destroy the business over hurt feelings about a vacation. No, I said. I'm establishing boundaries after a lifetime of being treated as less valuable than the rest of you. The business is just leverage, something Dad finally can't ignore because it affects him personally. My father, always quick with a dismissive comment or biting criticism, seemed at a loss for words. Finally, he reached across the table, trying to take my hand. I pulled back. Stella, please, he said, his voice breaking slightly. We're family. We can work this out. Family, I repeated. You keep using that word, but I don't think it means what you think it means. Family doesn't deliberately exclude one member from celebrations. Family doesn't publicly humiliate someone who just wants to be included. Family doesn't use someone's financial assets while treating them as disposable. I stood up, gathering my documents. I'll have my lawyer contact you tomorrow about the business issues. As for our personal relationship, that's going to take more than one conversation to address, if it can be addressed at all. As I turned to leave, James spoke for the first time. Stella, wait. I didn't know about any of this, about the business stuff or how bad you were feeling. I looked at my younger brother, seeing genuine confusion in his eyes. That's part of the problem, James. No one in this family ever thought to ask how I was feeling. I was always expected to show up, support everyone else, and never need anything in return. My mother was openly crying now. My father looked shell-shocked, and Amanda was furiously texting someone, probably warning her real estate agent about potential complications with her house purchase. As I walked out of my childhood home, I felt neither triumph nor sadness, but a profound sense of having finally spoken my truth after 30 years of silence. Whatever came next, I would face it as the woman I had become, not the overlooked middle child I had been trained to be. The explosion at the family dinner triggered a seismic shift in the Wellington family dynamics. In the days that followed, my phone blew up with messages, calls, and voicemails from family members in various states of panic, anger, and disbelief. Amanda called me 17 times in the first 24 hours, alternating between furious accusations and tearful pleas. "You're going to ruin everything," she sobbed in one voicemail. "My house closes in 3 weeks. I'll lose my deposit if this falls through." My father's approach was more measured but equally persistent. "Stella, we need to discuss this rationally," he said in a message. "The business implications are serious. Investors are expecting the expansion to proceed on schedule." My mother took a different tack, attempting to pull on emotional strings. "Sweetie, I know you're hurt, but this is your family. We've always been there for you." The selective memory and reality distortion were almost comical. Had they always been there for me? The evidence suggested otherwise, from missed birthdays to excluded vacations to diminished accomplishments. James was the only one who approached me with something resembling genuine remorse. He showed up at my apartment 3 days after the dinner, looking uncomfortable and holding an actual birthday gift. "I didn't know," he said when I let him in. "About your birthday dinner, about feeling excluded all these years." I guess I was too wrapped up in my own stuff to notice. His gift was a framed photo of the two of us from when we were kids building a sandcastle at the beach. I remembered that day. It was one of the rare occasions when I had felt like a full member of the family. "I'm sorry, Stella," he said simply. "I should have been a better brother." His apology touched me, but I maintained my boundaries. "Thank you for saying that, James. But this isn't just about you or any single incident. It's a pattern that's existed my whole life, and I'm done accepting it." The extended family took sides, as families often do in conflicts. Some cousins and aunts reached out with support, admitting they had noticed my exclusion over the years, but hadn't wanted to interfere. Others sided firmly with my parents, suggesting I was being selfish and vindictive. Aunt Lisa, my mother's sister, called to say, "I understand why you're upset about the vacation, but threatening the family business seems extreme. Couldn't you find another way to express your feelings?" "This isn't about feelings," I explained. "It's about respect and financial integrity. Dad has been misusing business funds that partially belong to me. That's not an emotional issue, it's a legal one." The business situation came to a head 1 week after the family dinner, when my father requested a formal meeting with lawyers present. We met at a neutral location, a conference room at my lawyer's office. My father brought the family's longtime attorney, Mr. Greaves, a man who had always treated me with polite dismissal at the few company events I'd attended. "Ms. Wellington," Mr. Greaves began, his tone condescending, "your father has authorized me to offer you a buyout of your interest in Wellington Foods. This would allow you to completely separate from the business while receiving fair compensation for your share." The offer they presented was significantly below market value, essentially trying to capitalize on our family conflict to cheat me financially one last time. My lawyer, Sophia Chen, a sharp, no-nonsense woman I'd hired specifically because she specialized in family business disputes, smiled thinly. "That's an interesting opening offer," she said. "However, given the documented financial irregularities we've uncovered, including personal expenses being paid through business accounts and the systematic underreporting of profits to minority partners, we'll need to conduct a full forensic audit before discussing any buyout figures." My father's face flushed dark red. "That's unnecessary and would damage the business reputation." "More than the potential tax fraud charges if these irregularities were reported to the IRS?" Sophia asked innocently. The meeting shifted dramatically after that. Instead of them dictating terms to me, we began negotiating a comprehensive agreement that would protect both my financial interests and the business's future. I made it clear that I had no desire to harm Wellington Foods, which employed hundreds of people and had been my grandfather's legacy. I want three things, I stated clearly. First, accurate financial restitution for past profit distributions that were incorrectly calculated. Second, a restructured partnership agreement that provides transparency and proper oversight. Third, my approval on the expansion plans after I've had time to review them properly with my advisors. After 4 hours of tense negotiation, we reached a preliminary agreement. My father looked exhausted. The confident businessman persona cracked to reveal an aging man who had been caught in his own manipulations. As the meeting concluded, he asked if we could speak privately for a moment. Against my lawyer's advice, I agreed, curious about what he would say without witnesses. "Stella," he began, his voice strained. "I never intended for things to get to this point." "Which point exactly?" I asked. "The point where I discovered you were shortchanging me financially, or the point where I stood up for myself after a lifetime of being treated as an afterthought?" He sighed heavily. "I've always been proud of you, you know. You're the most like me of all my children, determined, detail-oriented. Maybe that's why—" "Why what?" "Why you excluded me. Why you publicly humiliated me on my birthday. Why I pushed you harder," he finished. "Amanda and James always needed more obvious support. You seemed so self-sufficient." It was a revealing statement, though not the apology I deserved. My father had mistaken my adaptation to neglect as not needing support, using my resilience as an excuse for his failure to nurture me. "Being strong doesn't mean I don't need family," I said quietly. "It just means I learned to hide the hurt when you consistently showed me I wasn't a priority." As I left the meeting, I realized that the business negotiations, while important, were just the beginning of a much longer process of establishing new dynamics with my family, if that was even possible. The aftermath of my stand continued to ripple through family relationships. Amanda, faced with the reality that her house purchase might fall through, showed her true colors. She cornered me outside my office one afternoon, her perfectly made-up face twisted with rage. "You've always been jealous of me," she hissed. "This is your revenge for not being the favorite, isn't it?" "This isn't about you, Amanda," I replied calmly. "It's about being treated with basic respect and having my financial interests protected." "Everything was fine until you decided to make a scene," she shouted, drawing glances from passers-by. "Do you know how embarrassing this is for me? My friends are asking questions about why the family business is suddenly in turmoil." Her words revealed so much about her priorities, appearances over integrity, her comfort over my lifelong pain. In that moment, I saw clearly how different our values were and how unlikely it was that we would ever have a close relationship. My mother took a different approach. She invited me to lunch, just the two of us, at an upscale restaurant where we would be forced to keep the conversation civil. "I never realized how much you were hurting," she said, her eyes damp. "I thought because you were always so capable, so independent, that you were fine." "Did you think I didn't want to be included on family vacations?" I asked. "Did you think I enjoyed hearing about events I wasn't invited to?" She looked genuinely perplexed. "But you always seemed busy with your own life, your career. When we planned the Tahiti trip, your father said you probably wouldn't be able to get the time off work anyway." "He never asked me," I pointed out. "None of you did. You made assumptions about what I wanted, rather than including me in the conversation." She nodded slowly, perhaps truly seeing the pattern for the first time. "I've failed you as a mother, haven't I?" It was the first genuine acknowledgement I'd received from any of them, and it cracked something open inside me. Not forgiveness exactly, but a willingness to consider that change might be possible, at least with some family members. Through it all, I maintained my resolve about the business issues. The expansion was delayed while a proper review was conducted, much to my father's frustration. The forensic accountants uncovered even more financial irregularities than we had initially found, strengthening my position in negotiations. By the time we reached a final agreement, I had secured full restitution of past profits, a seat on the company board with oversight powers, and a restructured partnership agreement that protected my interests going forward. The expansion would proceed, but with proper financial controls and transparency mechanisms in place. On a personal level, I began setting clear boundaries about my time and availability. I declined some family gatherings that didn't feel healthy, while accepting others where I felt respected. I made it clear that my presence was no longer guaranteed simply because we shared DNA, but would be based on how I was treated. As the weeks turned into months, some family relationships began to heal, while others remained strained. My father and I established a wary professional relationship centered around the business, with personal interactions kept formal and limited. Amanda maintained her resentment, blaming me for exposing the financial issues rather than our father for creating them. She eventually secured alternative financing for her house, but rarely spoke to me except when necessary for family functions. My mother made the most genuine effort to repair our relationship, attending therapy sessions, both individually and with me, to understand the family dynamics better. James and I developed a closer bond than we'd ever had built on his new awareness of how I'd been treated, and his sincere desire to be a better brother. The most surprising outcome was my growing relationship with the business itself. As I learned more about Wellington Foods, I discovered a passion for the industry that I hadn't expected. My financial background proved valuable in streamlining operations and identifying new growth opportunities. What had begun as a stand for respect evolved into a new career direction I might never have discovered otherwise. 6 months after the confrontation, as the dust was beginning to settle, I received an unexpected email from my father. It contained no text, just an attachment, a formal announcement naming me as the new Chief Financial Officer of Wellington Foods. It wasn't an apology, but from my father, it was perhaps the closest thing to acknowledgement I would ever receive. 1 year after the Tahiti incident, I celebrated my 31st birthday on my own terms. No family dinner with underlying tension, no desperate attempts to earn approval through perfect planning. Instead, I rented a private room at my favorite restaurant and invited the people who had truly supported me through the past tumultuous year. Jordan was there, of course, along with colleagues who had become friends. My therapist, Dr. Winters, my lawyer, Sophia, and a few family members who had shown genuine care during the conflict, including James and, somewhat tentatively, my mother. Conspicuously absent were my father and Amanda, who had declined the invitation with brief formal excuses. As I looked around the table at this collection of people who valued me for who I was, not what I could do for them or how I fit into their narrative, I felt a profound sense of peace. The past year had been challenging but transformative, forcing me to confront not just my family's treatment of me but also my own willingness to accept less than I deserved. The healing process hadn't been linear. There were days when the old pain resurfaced, when I questioned whether the confrontation had been worth the ongoing family tension. Therapy had been essential, helping me recognize that establishing boundaries wasn't selfish, but necessary for my well-being. The hardest part, I told Dr. Winters during one session, is accepting that some relationships may never be what I hoped they would be. My father may never be capable of the kind of emotional connection I wanted as a child. Grieving the relationship you wished for is an important part of healing, she had replied. It allows you to see the relationship as it actually is, not as you hoped it would be. That grief process had been painful, but liberating. By acknowledging what wasn't possible with certain family members, I could appreciate the connections that were genuine without constantly yearning for more. My professional life had flourished in unexpected ways. As CFO of Wellington Foods, I had implemented changes that not only corrected the financial mismanagement of the past, but positioned the company for sustainable growth. The expansion had eventually proceeded with proper oversight and financial controls, proving more successful than my father's original rushed plans would have been. Working with my father remained complicated. We maintained a professional relationship focused on business matters, with personal topics carefully avoided. He had never directly apologized for the Tahiti incident or the years of exclusion, but his actions showed a grudging respect for my business acumen that he had never demonstrated before. Amanda and I had established an uneasy truce, interacting civilly at necessary family and business functions, but otherwise maintaining distance. She had eventually purchased her house with alternative financing, but still occasionally made passive-aggressive comments about the delay caused by my dramatic overreaction. My mother had made the most sincere efforts to repair our relationship. She began seeing a therapist of her own, coming to recognize how she had enabled the family dynamic that hurt me for so many years. I always thought my job was to keep the peace, she admitted during a particularly honest conversation. I never realized that meant I was allowing you to be hurt rather than confronting your father's behavior. James had become an unexpected ally, acknowledging his own obliviousness to my exclusion and working to establish a more equal sibling relationship. He made a point of including me in his life events and checking in regularly, just to talk something that had never happened in our childhood. Beyond family, I had developed new friendships and even begun a promising relationship with Michael, a kind and attentive man I had met through a business conference. Unlike previous relationships where I had accepted inconsistent attention and last-minute cancellations, I now valued myself enough to expect reliable communication and genuine interest. To Stella. Jordan toasted at my birthday dinner, raising her glass. Who taught us all that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's essential? As everyone clinked glasses, I felt a warmth that had nothing to do with approval seeking or performing to meet others' expectations. This celebration wasn't about proving anything to anyone. It was simply about marking another year of life, surrounded by people who saw and appreciated me for exactly who I was. After dinner, as we were enjoying dessert, my mother handed me a small gift box. "This was your grandmother's," she said quietly. "I think she would want you to have it now." Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a star. I remembered my grandmother telling me once that she had named me Stella because she knew I would shine brightly someday. "She always saw something special in you," my mother said. "She worried about how we were raising you, but she didn't want to interfere. Before she died, she told me to make sure you got your rightful place in the business because she believed in your abilities more than anyone's." The revelation brought tears to my eyes. My grandmother had tried to protect my future in the way she knew how, ensuring I would have financial leverage when I was ready to use it. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, James lingered behind. "I have something to tell you," he said, looking nervous. "Dad's been diagnosed with early-stage heart disease. He's not in immediate danger, but the doctors want him to reduce stress and start stepping back from day-to-day business operations." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, genuinely curious. A year ago, such news would have sent me rushing to help to prove my worth through sacrifice and support. "Because he's going to need to transition more responsibility, and I thought you should be prepared," James explained. "He might ask you to take on even more at the company. I wanted you to have time to think about what you want, not just what the family needs." His consideration touched me deeply. For perhaps the first time a family member was considering my needs and choices rather than assuming I would adjust my life to accommodate everyone else's plans. "Thank you for telling me," I said. "I'll need to think about what role I want going forward." Later that night, alone in my apartment, I reflected on how dramatically my life had changed in a single year. From the devastation of discovering my family's Tahiti trip on my 30th birthday, to the strength I had found in standing up for myself, the journey had transformed me in ways I never could have anticipated. The pain wasn't completely gone. I still sometimes felt the ache of wishing for a family that fully embraced and celebrated me. But I had learned that I couldn't change others, only my own responses to them. By setting clear boundaries and expecting basic respect, I had created space for healthier relationships to develop, even if some would never be what I had once hoped for. Most importantly, I had discovered that my worth wasn't dependent on my family's validation. Through confronting the patterns that had shaped my life, I had found my own voice and the courage to use it. The broken parts of my past hadn't disappeared, but they had become part of a stronger, more authentic self. As I placed my grandmother's bracelet on my nightstand, the silver star caught the light, sending tiny reflections dancing across the ceiling. I thought about the family I was born into and the family I was creating for myself through chosen connections based on mutual respect and genuine care. True family, I realized, isn't defined by blood or obligation, but by love, freely given and received. Sometimes that includes biological relatives, and sometimes it doesn't. the most important thing is that it includes yourself valued and honored exactly as you are. What about you? Have you ever had to create boundaries with family members who didn't value you properly? Let me know in the comments below. And if my story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength after betrayal. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the family you choose is more important than the family you're born into.